Here, Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Dasatarine and play our obeisances to Radha Nilamadhav Shri Shri Radha Nilamadhav Bhagwan Ki Jai Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Ji Ki Jai गौर निताय की जय सीताराम लक्ष्मण भक्त हनुमान जी की जय and then let's pay respects to Radha Kalachan ji because what I'm going to talk about today is in his area. Shri Shri Radha Kalachan ji ki jai,
Jai.
Jagannath Subhadra ji ki jai, Gaur Nitai
Jai.
ki jai. Their temple has this traditional look. You see that? Once you put those yellow lights, you have the simple lions under each pillar. My grandfather's home in Eluru in Andhra Pradesh used to have these things. And he used to call his entrance as Simhadwaram, means the entry with simhas or lions. So we are supposed to actually decorate our homes with lions so that they offer some protection. Of course, the best lion is Lord Nrsimhadev Ki Jai. So this is the plot that I just signed the deal for today for 83 acres. Technically, it is only 81.24 acres because there'll always be some loss on the right or left or something like that. So there are roads here. There's a county road here on this side. There is a county road here. So there has got like, it's a corner lot. I have lots on two sides.
Where is it, Prabhuji? Location?
It's in Wolf City, Texas. So let me show you. This is maps.
Is it near to the other one you mentioned before?
Yeah, it is near to Sridhar Sham Prabhu and Sheshdev Prabhu is on the call right now. So Sheshdev Prabhu's farm is somewhere here, 11. And the one that I signed a deal for is, what happened to it right now? I lost it. Somewhere here. This one.
So 81 acres for what price, Prabhuji?
$282,500.
Okay.
Roughly 3,500 per acre. Okay, so if you zoom in, this is called Wolf City. This is called Bailey, Randolph, Trenton. And
near to Wolf City, okay.
Yeah, this is McKinney, Frisco. All the Desis live in Frisco. It is like you will hear people speak Tamil and Telugu in Frisco. And then you see Prosper. This is like an upcoming city. Gunter, this is where one of the devotees starting a farm, but to enter into his farm, you have to pay $100,000. To enter into my farm, it's free. So very different approaches. One is commercial, one is devotional. So you can come to my farm and I put in a little tent and start working there. But to go to the Gunter farm, you have to pay $100,000 entry fee. Just like golf course, to get admission into golf course, you have to pay some money, right? They are charging $100K to just enter their farm. So this is McKinney, this is Frisco, this is Plano, Richardson.
Are all these farms created and maintained by ISKCON, Prabhuji?
No, it is created and maintained, created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, and it is maintained by devotees. So, yeah, ISKCON is a broad organization, right? Like I bought land with my own money, but I am a devotee in ISKCON, right? ISKCON is just an organization. Human beings run the show.
No, I understand, Prabhuji. I was thinking that maybe through the budget of ISKCON, they create all these farms.
It is my personal budget. I bought it with my personal budget. Sheshdev bought with his personal budget like that. Right? Okay. So whatever savings I have. So this is Dallas, and then Radha Kalachanji is somewhere here on the other side of Dallas. So quite far away. The temple is quite far away. So from DFW, this property, it is 77 miles away. But once you get on the highway, it's only 1 hour, 11 minutes. And from the Desi place, it is 1 hour. From here, if you go, so people typically come here on 380, get onto Highway 75. There are 2 ways to branch off. They'll branch off at Trenton, Baileyville City, or they can branch off here and go to Greenville and climb up. This is longer. This is longer. This is shorter. So yeah, it is not near the city because I cannot afford. Here, 1 acre in Frisco is 100K. 1 acre here is 3,500K. Right? So there's a lot of difference, right?
I mean, big, first of all, availability of
Yeah, there's no availability. Frisco
big city
recently,
itself is
Toyota,
a questionable
Toyota
thing.
bought a 20-acre lot for their factory. Toyota has a factory in Frisco or some assembly center for 20 million. So 1 acre is 1 million here in Frisco, some places. Prosper, it is about 100K per acre. McKinney is about 50K per acre. Anna is about 30K per acre. Leonard is 10K per acre. So as you move farther and farther away, price drops. Yeah, Frisco is very expensive, not 100K, 1 million per acre. As I said, Toyota bought 20 acres for 20 million. And our friends are trying to build a temple somewhere between Little Elm and Frisco. And they are priced out basically. Very expensive land here. Yeah, so that is the geo coordinates of where it is. So this is what it is. And then here is the close-up view. So I have 2 ponds. One I'm calling Radha Kund, the other I'm calling Sham Kund. And there is a big well, Kusum Sarovar. So hopefully I can do farming here and devotee quarters. So I'm not charging devotees for anything. They can come, stay with me, bring your own mobile home and just stay. Oh, there is one more pond. I cannot have devotee quarters near the pond, on the pond. So devotees can this is roughly about say 10 acres. In 10 acres, you can fit in 200 devotees. Each, if they get in like a 2,000 square foot, 1,000 square foot mobile home. And I've also researched the mobile homes. So let me go there and show you. This is budget home kits. So if you want, you can retire tomorrow and come join me. You can get a budget home kit for $36,990. It will have a living room, master bedroom, closet, toilet. But of course, I don't encourage this toilet. I want people to use composting toilets. So whatever you release will become fertilizer for the farm. Why send it into sewer, right? Because when you eat kaju and pistachio, the fertilizer that you release is very, very nutritious. So we have to, use it as such. So everything in God's world is recyclable, right? So this whole concept of using sewer and wasting your valuable, nutritious releases is actually a waste. It's a crime against nature. You have to reuse it. So for 35,000, which you probably have in the bank right now, you can come to my farm. I don't charge any rent. You can join us and do some farming like that, right? Look at the price, 36K for 37K, plus taxes, maybe 40K. Shipping and installation, maybe another 5K, 45K, you have a home on the farm. And the US soil survey, they have done that. So they have this different gradation. Yellow is called silt loam. No, orange is called silt loam. Blue is called Houston black clay, which is very, very nutritious. And then the other part is also Hayden Ferris complex. So slightly less nutritious. So this place I cannot do much. This place I can do a lot of crops. This place also I can do a lot of crops. Because if you really look at and remember my earlier presentation, you can grow crops in silt loam and black clay. Like if you look at coastal Godavari district in Andhra Pradesh, that's all black clay. And that's the most nutritious clay for growing crops, right? So US government has all this data online. So they say state Texas, county Fannin, township Leonard. It's a boundary of Leonard and Wolf City. How many acres it is, date, blah, blah, blah. And they'll tell you what is suited for, right? So they give ratings. So black clay, you can grow corn, cotton, sorghum, grass, Bermuda grass, you can grow oats. To a certain degree, you can grow wheat and soybeans. But wheat and soybeans is a lot of hard work. So we may or may not grow them, right? So you can grow sorghum. Sorghum is very healthy, actually. In India, they feed it to the horses. That's why horses are very strong. In America, even humans eat sorghum. And then cotton, right? And then where you have this Wilson silk loam, it is again suited for cotton a lot, a little bit less for corn, a little bit less for sorghum, and not much difference for wheat and soybeans. So this is my spiritual master's permission. So I got the permission this morning, and then I signed the contract today. He said, "Dear Radhika Gopinath Prabhu, may Srila Prabhupada's blessings be always upon you. Please get the land in this auspicious Purushottam month. Hari Guru Vaishnava Seva, Bhakti Vikasa Swami."
Yeah.
So anything that you do in life, you have to always take guidance from spiritual leaders. To get your daughter married, your son married, son's education, life should be guided. That is the principle. If life is not guided, you can make mistakes in life. So life should be guided. Let's make that statement here. Life should be guided. That's why you take shelter of spiritual leaders, so that they can give you guidance. They can see what you cannot see, right? To a certain extent, they know past, present, and future, and you don't. Therefore, we should always take guidance. I mean, sometimes you take guidance from me, but there'll be certain areas that it will be a bouncer for me too. So then I will go to the spiritual leader like Harulas Maharaj or my Guru Maharaj, or no, you can take guidance from anybody. I take guidance from Bhakti Bhanu Swami Maharaj in Chennai, time to time. I take guidance from Nityananda Prabhu, who is the temple president in Dallas, like that. Life should be guided. And that's what this guidance is. I wrote an email. I won't show you what I wrote to him. But his answer is, please get the land in this auspicious Purushottam month. Done. So yeah, we can do a lot here. I'm trying to motivate my brother to join me. He lives in Birmingham, Alabama. He's all by himself. So I'm motivating him to come and join me. I'm motivating Jaipal to join. So many people can do so many things. All right, there is a certain things that you do for society, like pay taxes, earn money. But then at some point you have to do things for yourself, for your own soul. And that's what it is. Here we can do that. We can put in, as I said, right, these tiny little homes. And we can have many of those, which you can mount. Why is this saying tong, tong, tong?
Prabhuji, does that mean that you're planning to move?
Some point, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there is only so much work I will do, right? After that, I'll have to take care of my soul. So right now I'm doing. Kids are getting educated, this, that. But at some point, I'll have some free time, and then I'll go into this type of lifestyle. So we can have, these kind of layouts in our overall devotee quarters. For some reason, computer doesn't like me. Keeps saying tong, tong, tong. Right? So we can have like devotees living. So there are some principles of devotion, right? Principles of, so I created a PowerPoint on that. If I find it, I will show it to you. Desktop, elements. I mean, initially I wanted to do here, but very expensive here. Everything is so expensive. All right. So this farm-based Varnashrama life is the best for our soul. Right. So we have a lot of opportunity, right? There are a lot of Chapter 12 family farm bankruptcies in 2019, increased by 20%. White Americans are exiting the farming business. So Mexican Americans are buying, and a lot of Indian Americans are buying. Like my agent, his name is Srikant Survaram Reddy. So he bought 5 farms already. He and his friends pool money. Whenever they have a little bit of money, they go and buy a farm. Because that's what Reddy's do in Andhra. They do farming. So some or the other, due to H1B, they came to America. But their innate nature doesn't go away anywhere, right? So they're all buying farms, right, left, and center. So Srikant Reddy bought 200 acres in Bonham, Texas, right? And then there is one Marwadi guy. He's the initiated devotee now. Sarvajaya Madhav Prabhu, disciple of Jayapatak Swami Maharaj. He bought like 6 farms already. He has a gold jewelry shop. So he's a very rich guy. I mean, compared to all of us. I mean, he's in a different league. So every year he'll go and buy 1 farm. So he bought a 100-acre farm along with some of his collaborators. And he's selling each farm for $100,000. But I'm not commercially minded. I'm not selling at that price point where people, when technically I could do the same, but I don't want to. I want people to come and stay on the farm and do devotion service. So for me, if somebody is coming, I'll say, okay, it's free. You bring your own mobile home, camp on the farm, and start, doing Varnashrama process and growing crops and things like that. So as American farms declare bankruptcies and the white people are exiting this business of farming, Mexican Americans and Indian Americans are taking over now. Indian Americans to a very small degree. Mexican Americans, it's very natural, right? They're all farmers back home in Mexico, and farm labor is very natural in America too. So they're saving money and buying farms. Right, so chapter 13 is your financial bankruptcy. Chapter 12 is family farm bankruptcy. So they're rising. People are unable to maintain farms because they have an undue expectation that they should buy a Jeep Wrangler with their farm salary. No, you cannot. You'll have to use some old vehicle, because farms, you make money, but you don't make large amounts of money. But it is good for the soul, right? From a financial perspective, it's very good for the soul. From a spiritual perspective, not financial perspective. So if you see chapter 1 filings, 13 state Midwest region, 22 in the Southeast. So even the Southeast, they're exiting. Like I bought this, or I'm in the process of buying this, just signed the contract from a white couple. They're exiting the business and Indians are entering the business. That's how it is. So my plan is to have an online university from the farm. So I will teach animal science, economic sciences, food science. I've already recorded like 3 courses on soil sciences, then horticulture, entomology, pathology. My wife's father's brother is a pathologist. He trained to be a pathologist, but obviously just like everybody else, he put some IT on his resume and he came to America. Whether it's pathologist or horticulturist or BCom, everybody put IT on their resume and they came to America. Right? But now he wants to get back into this traditional for which he got a Bachelor of Science in pathology, plant pathology. And so he's going to help me out too. So there are various people, like, we are all farmers actually. In the Garden of Eden, which Bible talks about, it says Garden of Eden. It doesn't say downtown of Eden, right? So spiritual world is agricultural. Spiritual world is not mechanical. It's not high-rise buildings. When you see picture of Krishna, do you see high-rise buildings behind him? No. Krishna himself is a farmer, right? What does he do? Every morning, his mother will give him a tiffin dabba. He'll tie that tiffin dabba to a stick. He'll put it on his shoulder, and he'll walk with the cows to the forest. And the cows will eat in the forest, various kinds of grasses. And in the evening, he brings cows back to Nandagram, right? So when Krishna is a farmer, we should be farmers too. There's no other going about it. And again, just 100 years ago, America was a farming country. Only this Intel chip was invented in 1960s. Computers were invented in 80s. Software, Windows was invented in 1985. And what you are seeing right now is very artificial. Prior to this, there was no high tech in America. All of that started in 1960s. Department of Defense started what's known as ARPANET, which we are using as internet to relay this class. All this 1965, that's it. Prior to that, America was an agricultural country. So, elements of a good Varnashrama project, my spiritual master gave some key principles, Bhakti-Vikas Swami. So we need spiritual leaders that can look after everyone. So we need Brahmanas on the farm, right? At least team of 3 Grihasthas who are committed. Otherwise, it will be very boring, right? If only one family goes. Need a spirit of cooperation, and important to move to the land along with family members so that it's not like only men are working and women are somewhere far away. And mentally prepared to learn farming, right? We need to be able-bodied. So if you don't have muscles, go exercise in the gym and get some muscles. We need to get able-bodied people, right? And then other people like teachers, doctors, they will all come later. And then we need few people with leadership qualities, vision and ability to work with others and taking responsibility. And then we need land and then ability to build buildings and other people who are ready to donate, right? I mean, it needs money also. If it is bottoms up and everybody buys on their own, it's difficult to build up. So that's why I said, okay, let me go with like a big farm where at least 200 people can live and sustain themselves. If I buy 3 acres and somebody else buys 3 acres, then the cohesion won't be there. Sorry? And it should be fairly close to the city so others can come. So I got this only like an hour and 11 minutes away from the city. So people can come. And it should not be too close to the city that people are allured by the city. So if it is too close to the city, then people want to go to movie theater. They want to go to the mall. And again, you get trapped into material lifestyle. Right? So it should be close, but not too close. So these are the principles given by my spiritual master. So they should have a Gurukul so that the kids can be educated. Because again, if you send kids to this Western education, then the Western values will come in. It's a very big challenge actually, teaching in Gurukul. Right? We started our school as a Gurukul, but slowly people said, oh, we want Western education. So a lot of the state of Washington textbooks got introduced. And slowly the Krishna conscious elements became 10% and Western education became 90%. Right? So the goal should be Krishna conscious education should be 90% and Western education should be 10%, because they still need to go outside in the world and speak in English and be able to go to a bank and transact and be able to relate to the external world. But exactly opposite happened. So in our school now it is 90% Western and 10% Krishna conscious. Ultimately we need Krishna's mercy. Without Krishna's mercy we cannot move forward. So on the Varnashrama is more than a farm community. Farm community means You are doing farming and you are growing vegetables and fruits and grain for your living. But Varnashrama is beyond that. House. Weaving and spinning and handloom and pottery. All these things that you see in traditional Indian villages have to be brought in so that it becomes a self-sustained ecosystem. And then devotees should be there, spare devotees should be there to train others and receive visitors. When visitors come, we should talk to them. Okay, this is why we are doing farmers. We are not just farmers, but we are a national community, a spiritual community, which teaches higher things about life and death and how to get liberated. So initially you need farmers, but then it becomes a whole ecosystem of Goraksha, weaving, spinning, handloom, training others, receiving visitors, right? So the land should be good with agriculture. So hopefully my land is good. I haven't seen it in person, but there are some creeks running close by. So, and there are 4 ponds. So there must be water and some flooding in the past, right? Otherwise those ponds will not form naturally. So flooding is good. People think flooding is bad. Why is flooding good?
Can somebody mute their phone?
With flooding, you get a lot of silt, which has nutrients, right? Like if you see the Ganges plains, which is the most fertile plain in India, you have a lot of flooding along the coast. And every year it deposits nice alluvial soil on which they grow fantastic crops. It gives you lots of nutrients.
You need to mute yourself. It's not mute.
So flat land is very important. Sloping land is not very helpful. Around the world, sloping land is used only for like growing grapes and things like that, not really regular crops. And there are certain principles that Bhakti Vikas Maharaj says, discuss with others before doing something, so as to get like a broad-based approach. So I took some advice from the temple leadership, from Sridhar Shamprabhu, who is in the process of buying his own farm, 203 acres. And this is a very important thing. So Maharaj says, give deliberately less material facilities so it attracts good people who are inspired. If you have all the material facilities of a city, then it will become a city. Then it will attract all kinds of people. So if you have less material facilities, then it attracts good people. So I posted on my YouTube channel one of Maharaj's lectures on don't have electricity on the farms. If you have electricity, again, all the demons of electricity will follow. Smartphones, TV, everything will follow. But if you don't have electricity, of course, you should have electricity only for the leaders who need to communicate with the outside world and to understand what the crop prices are and how to transport to various markets, things like that. But if you have broad electricity, then all these other demons will come in. Like TV is called a one-eyed demon because it will bring you all the materialistic concepts into the farm. So then he concluded that by the grace of Srila Prabhupada, this is possible. So Srila Prabhupada said we should all go to farms because this modern civilization is going to collapse. We're already seeing some, corona-induced collapse, but there'll be other forms of collapse also. Just the, less and less people want to work on farms, so food prices will go up. That is one other form of collapse, right? If less people work, there'll be less production, means prices of the food will go up. So he said devotees should go on the farms and take care of cows primarily because Goraksha will attract Krishna's mercy and then grow your own food, make your own cloth to the extent possible. 100% may not be possible immediately, but it will be possible because whether it's in America or in India, vast majority of the people do this, right? They grow their own food, they make their own cloth, and then excess they sell to the rest of the world. There are farmers like Jaipal's family is farmers. They grow their own food and they sell it to the rest of the world. If Jayapal's brother stops farming, then how will we get the food that he's selling in the open market? Right? So, and he also said cities grow around good land, not the other way around. If you see all the good cities like Hyderabad grew because there are a lot of agriculture around that. Guntur and Vijayawada grew because there's a lot of very fertile land. With 1 acre land, my grandfather was able to raise an entire family. 1 acre, not too much, 1 acre. Because so much grain comes. Like, he doesn't himself do the farming. He gives it to, other people to manage. So there's something like 80 bags a year they get. The persons who manage take 40 bags, and they used to give my grandfather 40 bags of rice. And my grandmother used to, like, everybody who's passing by the home, she would just give one, she would put the 2 hands together, and how much ever grain comes in these 2 hands, she would give to the person who is begging. And these are not beggars. These are all, like, sometimes sadhus come, sometimes regular people come, and everybody used to get 2 mutti bar rice for their home for that day. Continuously she used to donate rice every day, continuously. And we still had our granary full, right? So that's how it is. Of course, you still need some money to, like, build a house and things like that. Once you have that, then with the even 1 acre, you can do a lot. So cities grow around good land, not the other way around. Because if the land is bad and there is no produce, even the city that is there will die. Gradually it will go through a natural death. Like Detroit is dying right now. So many cities have died and so many new cities are coming. Ultimately, Seattle is surviving because we have good food sources around it, right? We have strawberries, blackberries, blueberries. So we have very good supply. And of course, our broccoli and cabbage comes from California because it doesn't grow here. So cities grow around good land. Okay, Sheshdev, please read this.
Srila Prabhupada lecture on Bhagavad Gita, chapter 16, verse 10, Hawaii, February 6, 1975. And it is said by Chanakya Pandita that if you want worldly happiness, then these things are required. Murkha yatra na pujyante. Don't worship rascals and fools. Murkha. Murkha yatra na pujyante. Dhanya yatra shushanchitam. And food grains are properly stocked. That is the Vedic civilization. That you work for 3 months, not very hard. Simply till the ground and sow some food grain seed. And within 3 months it will grow. And you will have ample food grains. And you will keep it in stock. And keep some cows. Dhanena dhanavan. Dhanena dhanavan. They say that a rich man means one who has got sufficient stock of food grains. Food grains. Dhanena dhanavan. That is Vedic economic system. Gavaya dhanavan. Gavaya means possessing some number of cows. One is supposed to be rich. It is actually the fact. Everyone should possess some land for growing food grains and some cows to take milk. Then the whole economic problem is solved. But the asuras, they, as we have discussed in the previous verses, Ugra Karma. Where is that verse?
So asuras go after Ugra Karma. Ugra Karma means artificial way of machinery-based living. To a certain extent, you cannot avoid it now. Like, even to do this class, I need a laptop and internet and all that. But to the extent possible, we should solve the economic problem by living on the land. Right? Ultimately, we are living on the land only. Everything that you buy from Apna Bazaar or Fred Meyer or Costco is also coming from the land. They are all dalals. They are all vartakas. Vartakas means what? They are traders. They are just trading for a margin. They buy it for $1, they'll sell it to you for $2. But actual food is coming from ground. It's not coming from them. Like, my wife's father's brother, Chacha, they live in Redmond, and they, in Redmond, Marymoor Park, they rent out small tracts of land for agriculture. And a lot of demand. The waiting list also, you cannot get it immediately. Some or the other, they got that tract of land. So day before yesterday, they gave us kale from their farm. Normally, if you buy one stalk of kale from Fred Meyer, it will be like $1.50. They gave like a whole basket. If I had to buy that in Fred Meyer, that itself will be like $50. So sometimes they give us spinach, sometimes they give us kale. And their tract of land is 10 feet by 8 feet. And they're able to grow so much in such a small place, right? So, of course, to build a building, you cannot survive on such a small patch. But their day-to-day, assuming they have a job somewhere, their day-to-day vegetables is taken care of. The whole month is taken care of. They're growing their own vegetables. Grains, of course, is a little challenge. You know, rice only grows in some place. It requires a lot of water. So at least to a certain extent, we should stop relying on this artificial system for which you need land. And land is not there in cities. You have to go outside of the cities. And a lot of white Americans do this. After they make a little bit of money in the city, they go out to the outskirts. One of my colleagues, he bought 5 acres land in Kent or Auburn. And I asked him, why do you do it? Self-sufficiency, he said, that's it. Right? We do self-sufficiency because we can do devotion better in self-sufficient environment. And he's doing self-sufficiency because he wants to survive. If there is a third world war or something, at least he can grow something on his farm and live, right? What if the trucks don't climb the hill on Sammamish? I live in Sammamish and I'm on a hill. If there is no petrol, then the trucks won't climb. Then how will the food come? So sometimes we box ourselves in these situations. So food won't come, right? Just Apna Bazaar was closed due to COVID for like 2 weeks. And we didn't have anything that we normally buy in Apna Bazaar, right? So we have to be self-sufficient. That is just for our survival only. Forget about the big philosophy, just for survival. So that's my brief talk about the farm. Any questions?
No, Prabhuji.
So that's Bhakti Vikas Maharaj, my spiritual master. He's doing Ratha Yatra. You can see the cart there behind, little in a hazy thing. And you have this well-looking brahmachari behind him and well-looking grihastha behind him. They're all going on Ratha Yatra. So it doesn't mean that you only live on the farm. You also do these type of things. Glorify the Lord in Ratha Yatra. Either you have a farm on the temple, temple on the farm, or temple somewhere, and you go do seva there. The goal of farming is not to become a farmer. The goal of farming is so that you can have a mode of goodness environment so that you can take to devotion easily and then get liberated quickly, right? Because I work in a high pressured corporate role, right? And meeting after meeting, sometimes I sit at my desk at 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. end-to-end meetings. And then I sneak away for 2 minutes, get something on my plate to eat, and continuously Zoom meetings, one after the other. In this high-pressured environment, you will never think of liberation or God or anything like that. You can only do that if your mind is free. And you will not appreciate this unless you see the other side, right? I've gone to farms in India, Nandagram, interacted with those people. I've traveled to Mayapur, Vrindavan, Badrinath, Dwarka, Jagannath Puri, and I've seen the other side also. Because I've been able to see the other side, I've been able to, I was blessed, I would say. Just a minute. So farm communities put people in the mode of goodness. So that is the second wave of mercy. Once people are in the mode of goodness, liberation will come very rapidly. Very quickly it will come. Right now we are struggling because we are in the mode of passion. right? Rajogun. So we have to quickly elevate ourselves into mode of goodness. And from there, it's only one step away, right? It is Shuddha Sattva or pure goodness. Like in Seattle area, we have something called an app called One Bus Away, which means when is my next bus? You click on the app and you figure out when your next bus is. In the same way, once you are in the mode of goodness, spirituality or liberation is only one step away. So first we have to get ourselves to mode of goodness, right? We are all in mode of passion, and that is dangerous actually. When we die in the mode of passion, we'll take birth again. When we die in the mode of ignorance, we'll take birth again in animal or plant or bird kingdom. When we die in the mode of goodness, we'll come back as human beings, but we don't want to come back. We want to go to Shuddha Sattva and get liberated and play with our Father Krishna. For everyone, there is only one Father. Is Krishna, eternal Father, as they say in the Bible, right? Oh Father, thou in heaven. So who is that Father? Krishna. So everybody has only one Father, but we have to go to him some or the other, right? Okay, so with that said, let's go to Bhagavad Gita. So do you remember, Jaipal, where we left off? It was in 17th chapter or 16th chapter? Oh, you were not there last time. Last time, Sheshadev, where did we leave off?